Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Web Tool Wednesday. Today is January 30th, 2013. My name is Emil Ahangarzadeh. I'm the director of the Technical Statewide Education Technology Service, funded by the California Department of Education and administered by the San Diego County Office of Education. Today, we will take a look at how students can record themselves as they narrate a report, presentation, or dramatic reading. Once they've recorded their audio file, they can then save the file to their device, send a link to the audio file via email, or simply embed their recording into a website or a learning management system, or even on a social learning network. WebTool Wednesdays is actually a service of the San Diego County Office of Education as well as TechSets. We are dedicated to leading, developing, and implementing digital literacy initiatives among staff and students across the county as well as the state. Our goals are to produce and provide professional development opportunities to strengthen the digital literacies of staff and students, and to provide online learning tools for students, districts, and communities in order to share innovative practices that are successfully transforming learning. Now, before we get too far ahead, a few points of order. First, please be advised that this webinar is being recorded in its entirety, including the content typed into the chat pod. The recording will be archived and made available to the public. As you'll note, audio input has been disabled for all participants. However, you may make comments through the chat pod located in the lower left of the screen. Now, the webinar is broken into several parts, including an introduction to the tool and a demonstration of the tool. We will also provide some ideas for your consideration regarding how the tool may be used. Then we will have a practicum period wherein you can give the tool a try. Finally, we'll reconvene for a question and answer period or a wrap-up discussion. Now, before we get the presentation started, we'd like to ask you to participate in a poll that's actually found directly beneath me. If you would simply take a moment and just click on the radio button next to the role that best describes you, it'll give me an idea of precisely who all is in the audience. And as you can see, you should all be able to see in real time who is voting what. So those of us who are looking at the poll can directly see that most of us are teachers. About 60% of us are teachers. We have a few other classified pros and a couple of certificated educators that don't fall into any of these categories. I appreciate your participation in this. You'll notice there is no submit button. You just simply click the radio button directly next to the role that best describes you. We're going to conduct two more polls here. The next one is a multiple choice poll. We'd ask you to, it's not multiple choice, you can select as many of these choices as you'd like to, but I'd like to know about what the grade spans are that you're working with, if you're working with K2, if you're working with 9-12, or if you're working with adults. So I can see that a majority of us fall right in the 3rd through 8th grade spectrum, actually no, K through 8. But it does look like we have a couple of high school teachers, so I want to extend my welcome to you folks and a couple of folks that are working with adults. And we'll do one last poll here, if you don't mind. It'll give me an idea of precisely what kind of tech savvy or how technically inclined you are. If you'd rate yourself and tell me if you feel pretty confident with technologies, that would make you a 5, or what I call an ed tech ninja. Or if you're not so confident, just give me an idea about who we're talking about here. So most of us fall right there in the middle range, and I appreciate that. Gives me a good idea of how to gear the presentation and what kind of scaffolding to provide, as I'm sure you're all familiar with that term. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, as all instructors know, being literate in a given language entails both expressive and receptive skills. Now, when we talk about expressive skills, we're talking about those that allow students to communicate their thoughts with others. Receptive skills allow students to acquire the thoughts of others. Basically, expressive skills include speaking and writing, and receptive skills include reading and listening. However, in education, we tend to lend more credence, if you will, to reading and writing and less to speaking and listening. Of course, there are many reasons for this, including speaking and listening being less a part of school accountability systems, the notion that listening and speaking come naturally, and reading and writing, particularly academic reading and writing, have to be learned, and so forth. But More and more educators from across the country, as well as employers from across the country, are noting that the listening and speaking skills of some people are, um, to put it bluntly, lacking. Just think of how many professional jobs entail mastery of listening and speaking skills. Folks who work in sales or teachers or corporate executives. Um, are masters of speaking and listening. Of course, actors as well. They really need to have some very strong listening and speaking skills. The list goes on, and arguably, every job requires some level of formal speaking and listening skills. But more importantly, listening and speaking tend to come more naturally for many students. After all, they've been doing it since an act of creativity and collaboratively practicing their listening and speaking skills. And the response to that is simple: provide opportunities for creating audio recordings. Just think of the possibilities with their peers, teachers, and the others. You can do so many different types of things. For example, you can have your students conduct an interview with someone who lived through World War II, or have the students record the recitation of a particular poem, or record the proceedings during a scientific experiment that they're conducting. They could combine or even create live sound effects and combine it with narration to create a documentary on a particular subject. They could dramatize a historical event, or interview a character from a piece of literature, perhaps have a partner play the role of that character. They could use audio recordings to make persuasive speeches, or maybe even create radio commercials for a community service. One of the ones I used to use when I was in the classroom is to have kids record a live debate on a particular topic. So I wanted to make this a little bit more relevant in light of the oncoming Common Core state standards. I've got a quote up on the screen that I invite you to read with me. New technologies have broadened and expanded the role that speaking and listening play in acquiring and sharing knowledge, and have tightened their link to other forms of communication. And the rest of the quote continues and talks about the dynamic nature of digital text. But this is a direct quote from the frameworks that are part of the Common Core state standards. And the speaking, the formal speaking skills are expressly called out in a number of the Common Core state standards, including the ones that you now see up on the screen. Acknowledge differences in the points of view of characters, including by speaking in a different voice for each character when reading dialogue aloud. That's an interesting standard, right? For the student to take on a voice, if you will, of a particular character, to be able to show how they are characterizing or how they conceive the characterization of a given character in a story. The one in the middle, plan and deliver a narrative presentation or an informative presentation that recounts a well-elaborated event, includes details, reflects a logical sequence, and provides a conclusion. And the third one, read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. Cite specific textual evidence when writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from the actual text itself. Now, one way to provide speaking opportunities for students is to use today's featured tool, which is called Vocaroo. Vocaroo.com is a wonderful service provided absolutely free of charge for really anybody. And what I'm going to do in just a moment here is I'm going to it actually works. So if you give me just one moment, you should see on your main screen where the presentation was formerly a screenshot, frankly, of what's up on my screen right now. What you should see is a website that says Vocaroo. You can see that full screen. It's actually located just over here in the upper right of the screen itself. You can click on that and it'll blow up the screen so you can see things a little bit more closely and in detail. So let me show you how simple this tool is. One of the wonderful parts of this particular tool is that it's simple as just pushing record and pause and stop. So directly is the actual interface that's used to engage in the recording process. And it's really nice. It's a very simple URL, as you should be able to see. It says vocaroo.com in the URL box itself. And so what I'm going to do now is simply come on over and click the simple button where it says click to record. And once you do that, what it does is it connects back to the servers of the Vocaroo system. And as you see, a little window pops up that says, hey, this is a Flash-based system, and so consequently what we need to do is access your computer's Flash-based software. Do you allow us to access it, or do you deny us the access? And of course, I'm going to go ahead and click on Allow. And when I do so, the recording automatically starts. So this is one of the kinks. It's not a kink, but it's something to train the students on. And as soon as they click on Allow, if the computer is tuned up appropriately, the recording immediately starts. And you should be able to see the click to stop button is radiating in red right now. So if I click to stop it, you'll see that it's actually now stopped, right? So once the student stops the recording, they have two options. They can either listen to the recording and retry if they didn't like what they saw. Let's listen to the recording. You click and when I do so, the recording automatically starts. So this is one of the, not bad, not bad, I like it. Maybe I'm a little too loud, so I'm going to go ahead and click on stop. I didn't like what I was saying, so I'm going to retry that by clicking the retry button. And again, you'll notice immediately we'll start recording. Hello, this is Dr. Ahangadzadeh, and I'm wanting to remind you of tonight's homework. Tonight's homework includes, oh wait, there is no homework. Have a great night off, boys and girls. And you click on stop. Let's hear that. Hello, this is Dr. Ahangadzadeh, and I'm wanting to remind you of tonight's homework. Tonight's homework includes, oh wait, there is no homework. Oh, okay, I like it. That makes sense. That's the recording I want to email to parents, email to my students. I'll show you the various ways that you can publish this recording. Okay, so I'm actually happy with that recording. You'll notice that there are no editing tools involved. It's a live speech that you record using your computer. I'm only using my computer's internal microphone system and my computer's internal speaker system. I'm happy with that recording. So the next thing I need to do is come on down to the link that says click here to save. Several tools for me to be able to publish my or share my recording. So the first thing I want to do is point out to you that I can simply come over here, grab this URL, and copy that URL. This URL is directly linked to my specific recording. So I'm going to, on my keyboard, push the Control-C button, or you can just right-click and click on copy. And I'm going to open up a second instance of my browser, and I'm going to push Control-V to copy, to paste the URL of my specific recording. And when I push return, this is Dr. Ahangadzadeh, and I'm wanting to remind you of the recording starts to play. Now, you might have noticed a couple other things up on the screen. There were no advertisements when the students were first working, but now there are advertisements. Now, the good news is that if your school system's filtering is working appropriately, if the content that's being advertised falls into the category of subjects that are inappropriate, you'll just see two blank boxes going up and down that screen right there. So there won't be any advertisements there. In this case, Alaska Airlines and Western Governors University is being advertised because that passes through our content filter. The good news is that right off the bat, instantly, quickly, I make a recording and it's ready to publish. I can paste that URL into an email, send it off. I can create a link with that URL on my website, on the teacher website, or perhaps I can even do the following. I'm going to go into our chat pod and I'm going to paste the link right there into the chat pod itself. Up yet, you'll see the link to my recording. And if any of you out there who are following along, click on the link in the chat pod, again located directly in the lower left-hand corner, you'll be able to hear my particular recording as well. Now I do this very specifically because this is one of the things we're going to do when we get to the practicum component of today's workshop. So keep in mind, all I did is simply go to vocaroo.com, I pressed record, a window pops up, says, do you allow access? I clicked allow, started recording, then I clicked on listen, heard myself, clicked on save, and finally I have my embedded tool here. But what if I didn't, excuse me, not my embedded tool, but a link to the actual audio recording itself. But let's say I actually don't want kids to be able to go to another website with advertisements. Let's say, for example, I'd like to be able to embed this particular recording for teachers. All we have to do is simply come on over to the button that says embed. And when you click on the embed button, what you'll notice is you get this thing called an embed code. So once you have the embed code, you simply click on the code, and you don't have to understand all of the lingo inside it. You just have to copy it, Control C or Command C if you're using Apple, and then paste it into a browser-based online tool that will accept HTML code. So for example, let's say I have a particular website I'm using, or perhaps I'm using a learning management system to post some content. My students are turning in their assignments, or they're perhaps they're sharing a discussion with one another, and I want folks to be able to hear this recording on my actual website. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create my new website page, and of course all different page. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply paste that code right into my website. Now again, remember, I can do this with a learning management system, with a social learning network like Edmodo, for example. And once I've done so, I click on update, and a gadget pops up, and I save it. Now take a look at what I have now on my web page itself. Once it actually loads up, I'm able to actually play that particular recording live off of my given web page itself. So my students don't have to leave the web page, my student's web page or my teacher's web page. They will hear the recording directly on the actual page itself. Now, sometimes you get a little bit of trouble, and it sometimes is problematic, but you'll notice that in this case you have a little link. You can click on it and it'll pull it right back up for you, and you can start to talk and use it if you'd like to. But the point is that Vocaroo will give you the option to actually embed the recordings that you've created, so that you don't have to do it via link. You don't have to send students to another web page. You can embed the actual recording into the website. So I'm going to take just a moment here and see if there are any questions that are being posed in the chat pod. It looks like Chuck is talking about oral history recording. I'm sorry, Christy, if I'm freezing on you. It could be on just your end. It looks like Kimberly's also having some of those problems in Los Baños. A lot of this has to do with our local Wi-Fi connection. So let me go ahead and stop the sharing of the screen. Again, as you noted, it's a fairly simple system to use. It's not very complicated. You simply go to Vocaroo and you click on record, and you're good to go. So now it's your turn. What I want to ask you to do, colleagues, is I've stopped sharing the screen, so hopefully the bandwidth load will lessen and you'll be able to follow along a little bit more without many hiccups. I'm going to ask you to direct your browsers to vocaroo.com. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do with your, if it's okay with you, I'm going to be able to see is Vocaroo turning on for you in an instance of your browser. If it doesn't, you can simply direct your browser to the URL that's up on the screen, which of course is www.vocaroo.com. vocaroo.com, and you should be able to access the tool directly. And what I want to ask you to do is play a little bit. Experiment with today's featured tool. As you're messing around with it, if you have any questions or any concerns, please type in your questions or comments in the chat pod as you're experimenting with it and maybe engaging in a discussion with folks who might be in the room with you. And I'll do the best that I can to respond to your comments and questions in the chat pod. So here's what I want to ask you to do as you're experimenting with it, is I want to ask you to actually create a Vocaroo recording. And create the recording by responding to the question that you now see up on the screen. How do you see Vocaroo used in your curriculum, if at all? If you can see Vocaroo as something that you might be able to use for a specific assignment, make a recording and tell us what exactly you think that assignment would be, or how the use of audio might support the student's mastery in your given subject area. Now, once you've done that, copy the link and post it into the podcast, into the chat pod. And what I'll do is I'll play it. We can all hear each other's voices across the state of California, and we can hear one another's recording as we respond to the question, how do you see Vocaroo used in your curriculum? So if you're ready to go, give it a shot. Go directly to vocaroo.com. Screen. How do you see Vocaroo used in your curriculum? And once you've completed your recording, go ahead and copy the URL and paste it right here into the chat pod, and we'll play it and we can actually hear voices from across the state. Now, as you can notice right off the bat, some folks don't have microphones, so that can be quite problematic for some people. So what I'll do while everybody else is messing around with their computer systems, I'll show you another way you can use Vocaroo. But obviously, a microphone is going to be required for you to experiment with this tool so that you can get some hands-on experience with it. This shouldn't take you more than 5 or 10 minutes for those of you who are going to try it. So why don't we, instead of convening back at 4:15, let's try to reconvene at 4 o'clock. It's now 3:52 by my watch. I'll go ahead and reiterate it one last time. The idea is for you to be able to go to vocaroo.com, make a recording, capture the URL of your recording, paste it into the chat pod so we can hear one another. Well, yeah, certainly. If it has to do with audio recording, your microphone is going to need to be active. Now, in many cases, the laptops, the computer systems that are out there in schools already have built-in microphones. But the problem, however, tends to be is that for one reason or another, the operating system has been upgraded or updated, but the audio drivers haven't been updated. Or in some instances, there really is no microphone. There is no internal microphone, in which case you would need to install an external microphone, which you can buy nowadays from places like Office Depot for as low as, actually I've seen them for $5. You're not going to get the best quality, but that's okay. That's not really the main purpose here. So it looks like several of you have already started to put in your links. Now you'll notice in this first case, one of our colleagues from San Diego Unified has actually posted the entire embed code. So just as a reminder, I'll go ahead and stop sharing and show this off one more time, just so we're all seeing it, is that there's a difference between sharing the entire URL code, the embed code, and just giving us the link, you see. So the embed code is only computer language. So you would only use the embed code of your recording if you want to include it or embed it into a website, into a learning management system, or into a social learning network. But this, on the other hand, this particular URL, this is just a direct link right to your recording. So it's best to try to share the link with us as opposed to the embed code, because the embed code is frankly not going to give me much chance to be able to play it back for folks. But while we're here, while we're actually taking a look at the Vocaroo page one more time, you may have noticed that there are actually a couple of other options available for you in the sharing screen. It's small, but it's down below. It says you can download your recording as an MP3 file or a WAV file or an Augur FLAC file. Now, MP3, you probably recognize that term. That's the type of file you would want to download if you want to save this particular the recording to your local machine, not just have it served across the web. So as I click on download as MP3, you'll notice that it pulls it up for me and hello, this is Dr. Alhangarzadeh. There's my recording again, you see? And here's the URL, and all I need to do is go ahead and save this document to my my local machine. So the good news is that they'll instantly give you the MP3 file of what it is that you recorded. And for the more savvy students, like the high school kids or the upper middle school kids, they can then take these MP3 files and piece them together into even a larger audio record. It's, of course, another workshop because that takes a lot more a lot of other tools. You'll need to know about a whole mess of other tools to be able to do that. But the good news is that this particular system does provide access to the actual MP3 so that teachers are not logged in into just using the web-based service. So absolutely, you're right. Oh, I apologize again, Ms. Santana. Again, a lot of that has to do with your cable provider or your Wi-Fi connector. We certainly recommend that you use the a wired connection if you have access to that. But you will need a microphone, certainly, and it looks like Marty's asking you a question about 2 different codes. So that's right, Marty. You copy and paste the sharing options into your teacher page or your school website. So the embed code, the one with all the gobbledygook, you would use that if you want the player to live on your own website, as opposed to on the Vocaroo.com website. You would embed that into your website itself so that the students don't have to go to Vocaroo.com to hear the recordings. But if you want to simply share the link, you don't copy the embed code, you copy the link that's directly above it. So hopefully many of you are going through and you're checking out your recordings. It looks like Perry's already got one. Let's see if I can share Perry's recording as I click it, and we should be able to hear it in just a second.
Hello. My sample assignment in my classroom, I would like to have my students narrate a video or a PowerPoint presentation.
Very nice. Yeah, let's play that again.
Hello. For my sample assignment in my classroom, I would like to have my students narrate a video or a PowerPoint presentation.
What a great idea, Perry. I really appreciate that. Very simple. Now, one of the issue with doing that would be that PowerPoint already has an internal recording tool that you can play with. And what's great about it is that it'll actually syncopate the recording to the motion of the slides itself. But why not? Let's play with that. Give that a shot. I'd love to hear back from you sometime to see how it is that you chose to work it out. I'm also seeing that Dennis was not able to see the link to copy. I doubt it's because of your browser, but it could well be. What I would recommend is you maybe try it in another browser, because once you click it, I mean, I think you saw it should just pop right up. Looks like Marcia has also got a recording. Let's listen to Marcia's recording. Oh, it doesn't look like there was much recorded. Oh, the requested media could not be found. It may have expired or been deleted, possibly. Let me go ahead and reload that and see if it'll come back up again. One moment, Marcia. I'm trying to see if it'll come up. No, for some reason, it looks like your recording didn't stick. Can you try it again, Marcia, and send us another link for whatever reason? Looks like Christy's got one. Okay, let's listen to Christy's.
Here's what I envision using this tool. I have a lot of students who speak really softly, and this will encourage them to speak louder. And there's no technical difficulties, and that I'm recording well, and that's all simultaneously.
That's great, Christy. Thank you so much. But your voice came across very clear. You must have a really good, finely tuned device. So Penny's put one up as well. Let's listen to Penny's recording. It's loading now.
As I told you earlier, I work in IT, and I think this is a pretty nifty tool to be able to help teachers across the district and Well, everyone benefits.
It's great.
Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Penny. It's just a very simple way to engage in some quick calm with one another. Just send a little message to each other. One way that I know some teachers use this tool is to make a recording and send the know exactly what's expected of the students so they can hear it. Yeah, you were pretty loud. It's no problem, though. I'm waiting to see if more folks can submit their links. Again, I apologize for speaking so much. Probably ruining your recording. Here's Dennis Danielson. Let's hear Dr. Danielson's recording.
I would use Vocaroo in my online blended learning courses to post assignments for clarification.
Brilliant. Why not? You know, sometimes what happens is, as you all well know, is a teacher does the best that they can to convey a concept, and then on the way home they go, here's the analogy that I should have made to really clarify that. Do a quick recording, send that email out, or post the email on the class website, and you're good to go. I haven't seen a time limit that's come up, but then again, I've never made a recording more than 5 minutes in length, Lovisa. And to be perfectly honest, if recording anything more than 5 minutes in length is 5 minutes is probably the limit case that I would make for any kind of an audio recording. I mean, even the songs are down to 3 minutes or so, 3.5 minutes or so. So, but I don't know the technical limitation of it. It could be 5 minutes. Most of these systems work in 5, 10, and 15. So it might be 5, it might be 10, it might be 15. My understanding, Kimmery, is that it stays on there forever and ever, amen. But there is, as far as I know, there is no limitation because they assign a specific URL code to that particular recording. Now, I can tell you that it's pretty difficult to get a hold of the Vocaroo people, but they are most active on Twitter. So if you do want to ask questions of the Vocaroo technicians, you would just need to send them a tweet using Twitter, and their handle or username is @recording music and then embedding it into a piece of writing. What a great idea. And that's one of the things that I actually didn't share with you. And so thanks to your note, what I'm going to do is, again, stop sharing and show you something. One of the features of Vocaroo is that you don't have to necessarily audio recording system, because you can also, as you can see here, you can upload. You see here, so if you already have a soundtrack, let's say an MP3 or something like that, you can simply click on upload and then just go ahead and upload that. You'll notice here, though, that they're saying that the file can't be more than 50 megabytes up, and obviously you shouldn't be using copyrighted material. So that's one other option. Now you might ask yourself, well, why? Why would I want to upload something? I mean, isn't the point of all of this to record live recording? Well, certainly it is. That what you get, though, by uploading MP3s into the Vocaroo system is that you get it, you turn it into an embeddable MP3, right? You can take what's an MP3 normally, and instead of sending the MP3 across as an email, which sometimes is too large to fit in an email, you can upload that MP3 to a Vocaroo and then get the link of the file that's saved on Vocaroo and then email the file to friends or colleagues or your fellow students. And again, you can get the embed code for your particular recordings. So as I'm monitoring the discussion here, again, once you save as MP3, okay, so here we go, our friends from San Diego Unified. Ms. Santana, let's hear what you've got.
I always want to see my kids using this when they incorporate and have them incorporate into their PowerPoints.
Great idea, great idea. Great minds think alike, I appreciate that. Let's see if there are any other ones. Here's Lovisa's recording, let's hear hers.
I would use Vocaroo. I would have used it today in my class to help my kindergartners record the Braille alphabet in terms of letters and numbers. For example, A is 1, B 1, 2, C 1, 4, etc., etc., etc.
What a great idea, Lovisa. That's a wonderful idea. And you know, there's something that we haven't quite talked about yet, and I was hoping to get to the practicum component, which is hopefully, if everybody's okay with that, I'm going to move into the wrap-up session and engage you in a little bit of a discussion about this. Is that yes, it is important to hone our students' speaking skills and listening skills. My colleague Dennis Danielson, who's in on this particular presentation, came up with a really wonderful idea. He said, you know, you could read stories or short passages and record them, and then put that recording in a website and have the students listen to the recording and then answer questions about the narration in the recording. Right, so that the kids are engaged in acute listening for given facts, listening for tone, and so forth. What a great way to use this very simple MP3 recording tool. Thank you for coming, Penny. Appreciate it. No worries. Of course, this is all going to be archived, so if you ever want to check it out again. But the point I wanted to make to the larger group here, colleagues, and I'd love to get some of your ideas, thoughts, opinions, and any questions you might have about this, is that face when a child hears his own voice or her own voice, or when you hear the giggling of several children while they're recording a presentation, if you will, there's just something magical about that. And it's magical not only for us as educators, it's magical for the students because there's meaning that's imparted onto the given activity. Now, yes, we learned about Edgar Allan Poe, but now we've actually turned our learning into a tangible product, and the world can access it. And by the world, I mean my parents, my friends, and my other teachers, as opposed to a one-off assignment or a simple product that's created and simply shared right there in the moment to get the grade and move on to the next thing. There's a creativity that comes into play, which is one of the things that has spurred us to do these whole Web to Wednesday webinars, is to really promote that idea of using the web to support students in creating content, not just for the teaching part of it. A couple comments up on the screen. That's right, Dennis. Yeah, it's all about letting the kids do some creation. And so I'll wait to hear some of your questions and ideas as well. Diane is mentioning that her kids need to learn to hear themselves. That's a really good point. A lot of research, let me retract that. Some research that I've come across makes a great case for students hearing their own voice in order for them to improve their